A 12-year-old boy frequently interrupts his classes with loud sounds. His classmates laugh when he does so. Over time, he makes these loud sounds more and more often. Which of the following mechanisms best describes this boy's behavior? Choice A, habituation. Choice B, sensitization. Choice C, classical conditioning. Choice D, operant conditioning. Choice E, imitation learning. Choice F, observational learning. I'll wait 5 seconds so you can pause the video if you want to try answering this yourself. So in this question, we have a 12-year-old boy who does an action, and then he is essentially given a reward when he does this action. So in other words, he has a learned behavior that is in response to a reward stimulus. So that's why choice D, operant conditioning, is the correct answer. So just to work in these incorrect answer choices here, answer choices A and B, habituation and sensitization, are types of simple learning. These just mean that your response to a repeated stimulus will go down or up if someone repeated it over and over. So for example, if I kept poking you and eventually you learn to just ignore it and you don't even notice it anymore, that would be habituation. But if I kept poking you and you started from slapping my hand away and then you eventually upgraded to the point where you're like punching me in the face or something, that would be sensitization. As for answer choices C and D, some of you might have been confusing classical and operant conditioning sometimes. Classical conditioning is very easy. You just think of Pavlov's dog. You ring the bell and then they salivate because they learn to associate the bell with food. Operant conditioning, on the other hand, always involves a reward that elicits the action. And in fact, I could upgrade this question if I felt like it, because there's technically 4 types of operant conditioning I could ask you about. So there's positive and negative, and there's reinforcement and punishment. Positive and negative means that you either give something to the subject or you take it away. Whereas reinforcement and punishment means that you either reinforce to cause the behavior to occur more often, or you punish, which makes the behavior occur less often. So, for example, this particular question would be a positive reinforcement. It's positive because he gets a reward in the form of laughter from his classmates, and it's reinforcement because it increases the behavior, which is him making noises during class. If this was a negative reinforcement instead, it would be something like, you take away the child's recess time, so let's say every time he makes noise, you say you lose 5 minutes from your recess time. But for whatever reason, this just causes him to do it even more often. That would be a negative reinforcement. On the flip side, a positive punishment would be me giving him something that causes him to do the behavior less, which would be something like each time he makes the noise, I whack him on the head with a newspaper, and that causes him to make noises less. That's a positive punishment. And finally, of course, a negative punishment would be me taking something away to cause the behavior to go down. So if he doesn't get any gold stars from me during class because he keeps making noises, and that causes him to make the noises less, that would be a negative punishment. The last 2 answer choices, answer choice E and F, imitation learning and observational learning, you don't really see these in study resources as often, but I did see them as wrong answer choices, so I decided to just throw them in here. These are both just concepts from behavioral sciences. I think they're pretty self-explanatory terms. Basically, observational learning is you see someone doing something and then you internalize that behavior and try to do it for yourself. Like if the kid saw some other kid being really well behaved and that kid gets rewarded in various ways for it and he takes on that behavior for himself, that would be observational learning. Imitation learning is just straight up monkey see, monkey do type stuff. I don't think either of these are important. I think they were just there as distractors. So the big takeaway from this question, I think, is really just remember the difference between classical conditioning and operant conditioning. And I have seen questions before where they ask more in detail with the operant conditioning, so you might want to know about those as well.